Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new stream. Sorry about the previous one; it wouldn't connect live, and it did. I don't know what's going on, but I don't know. It could be my system. I don't know. You may hear this guy here uh, barking away. He's been agitated lately, so I got to deal with what I can. He's like an angry old man, 17. Anyways, let's get on with the show. So I put on. I put up a article on my website behind the paywall, and we're going to talk about these currency pairs and other winners, among other things. So this is all OANDA, CFD, and Forex. So let me work off of that. Okay, this should help. All right, so the first one I want to show and talk about, which is having a huge impact, is the dollar, the DXY. You can see here it bottomed out on July 23rd, peaked here or here, November 23rd. Oh, that's a 4-hour chart. Let me pull up the daily. So yeah, you can see here it did peak at 114. Really good run up since May till this point, and now it's kind of bottomed out. This whole process is based upon how the U.S. markets are turning out. So I don't know if this is going to go flatline and go range bound for a while, or if the decline will continue. It does impact U.S. Treasury, U.S. debt, but let's talk about other than the U.S. But you'll find a lot of other big pairs are strengthening against the U.S. dollar. All right, so here's the I call it the king dollar now. It's proving to be pretty good, and I'm going to show with my Ichimoku Cloud strategy. And what you can see here is that it started to take off in around November 23rd. Let me pull up a 1 day. You might not see it as much. Okay. This was an idea I put up earlier today. And what this is, also you have copper. So you can see here how copper has pretty well been in line with the price of Australian against the US dollar. The reason for that is a couple of weeks ago, the Australian PM went over to meet Z in China, and they made arrangements to reactivate the trades between Australia and the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. So now what's happening is that the CCP is trading and importing in minerals from Australia. Obviously, one that we can show is copper. And as a result, the Australian dollar starts to strengthen. And it's also strengthening against the declining US dollar. So this is just an example of how the wealth is, hello, Pepe, how the wealth is transferring east now. And a chunk of it's turning into Australia as long as China is opening up and importing material that they need for manufacturing. So you can see here, copper has gone up, and that's a good sign because that's one of the four base metals for manufacturing. And I'm not sure if other uh, metals are performing as well, but you can see there that there is a relationship between the two when they're trading. So the Australian dollar is strengthening, which is good. The dollar is going to weaken. I have no idea how long this trend will go. I think it's gonna go range bound for a while, dependent upon spending, deficit spending, I should say, with the U.S. and so on and so forth. I'm sure you heard that enough from me over the last few weeks, along with other problems. So you may hear that Chihuahua go crazy in the background. See what I mean? Anyways, let's go back to other currencies here. So another one that I want to pay attention to is China itself, because I think China is another interesting country that's not really. Uh, let's see if I can find it. So as you know, crypto has definitely dropped off. Uh, okay, we'll get there. So what I'm going to show you now is USD CNH, which is the Chinese yuan. Okay, and you can see here it's weakened. All right. So again, November 23rd, that day, everything started to move up. The yuan starting to strengthen as well. So that might mean that we're in early stages of money flow, hot capital flow is moving out of the west into the east, because all these things that you're seeing here that are the winners over the last probably week, especially above the maybe, this is hot capital flow that's flowing out of the U.S. into foreign lands. So right now the U.S. markets are rallying, but right now, who knows how long that'll last. But fundamentally, I think you will find things may start to move eastward. Okay, so let me continue along here in other pairs. I want to show you also the Japanese yen's the other big one that has. Let me show you the Japanese yen. Okay, this is the Japanese yen. This is the one that people are making a lot of money with, but you can see it's kind of the yen is strengthening against the dollar, so this is no longer the predictable trade that it used to be. Okay, so this is where intervention came in. Bank of Japan intervened. Boom. Here and here are where the Bank of Japan intervened. So this trade is starting to show some reversal, but it's not with the US dollar. There are other currencies I can show you with the Japanese yen as it starts to weaken again. One is the British pound. So it might not be, you can see here that that trend hasn't been as great as a strengthening or a decline in this chart. The reason is because when you have a declining dollar, but the British pound is holding steady, so that decline won't be so much. So what you're going to do is instead of relying on the USD Japanese yen, you might want to start looking at maybe the British pound against the yen to continue that trend over the last 5 years. So you can see here it's a lot less. There's a lot less fewer dips. So when you look at the comparison of the returns, let's say over the last 5 years, obviously you're getting about 3% bump. But to continue that trade, that's what you want to do is go with the British pound against the yen. Another one you could probably go with is let me just see here. So we've got. Let me see if I can find the euro against the yen as well. Yeah, it's about the same. So it's tough to say where the Japanese yen, those dips aren't as great. So yeah, you could trade, as I said, euro against the Japanese yen or pound against the yen. That's fine. So there's that. One thing I will say about the Japan now, just again, these are CFDs I'm using. So let's say the Japanese 225, the Nikkei. So let me get rid of this one here. You can see here that the Japanese Nikkei has done fairly decent, but if you compare that to, let's say, the Nasdaq 100 or SPX 500, yeah, SP 500. Again, I'm just using CFDs. You can see it's kind of in line, but uh, what's happening right now is that the Nasdaq is starting to take off. I don't know if you saw the trading results from today. Everything dipped except for the Nasdaq, and that's of course because the return of the Magnificent Seven. I put up a post on my Substack highlighting that a lot of the big tech is coming back. Um, and there's certain companies that are doing well and certain companies that are not as strong. Nvidia is not one of them. You could look at companies like Adobe or Apple for the big tech stuff. So there's that. Okay, so I'm going to continue looking at some Forex stuff. Okay, so if I look at some of the other ones that might be a shock to some people, is have I shown? Okay, so let me show you this other trade here is the British pound against the US dollar. So this has been fairly well. Let me pull up the 4 hour. Nice and clean upswing. So that's pretty good as the US dollar starts to fall. So this is starting to maybe bottom out. I don't know. But this US spending is impacting the dollar as well as the rising treasuries as well. So some I can actually I can't show it because they don't have trading view doesn't support those CFDs. But the U.S. Treasury has been rising. So as long I mean that's going to be a big problem for the U.S. dollar. It's one of the reasons why I think the credibility with the Moody's downgrade, blah blah. It's not helping the U.S. So right now I think there's certain other currencies that can continue the upswing, especially in the with the Japanese yen. That's pretty strong. If you guys got any questions, let me know. Another one that's been fairly consistent is the Canadian dollar has been weakening. As you can see here, a lot more choppy, but the trend is there. So that's a pretty good trend as well. So as I said, you want to stick with the yen because it's less volatile with any as a base currency or a quoting currency for your holding. The thing is that where it gets really crazy is you got the exotic currencies like the South African rand and the Turkish lira, and they're consistently proven to be really good. A lot of people don't want to recognize this type of trade with the USD against the Turkish lira. I mean, there's just a consistent pattern here. And when you look at the 5 year, I mean, like you'd be a fool not to be part of this trade. So if I don't know, I'll use the USD as just a standard trade here. I mean, look at the difference between you get negative return. Meanwhile, in the last 5 years, even probably since 2021 here, you're probably up 405% return. I don't know why people don't take advantage of that. But even better can be the euro, Turkish lira, of course. So they're kind of in line with each other, and we all go on about crypto and oh look, oh Solana's up. Well, yeah, but then you got this thing that's just consistently moving up as the whole Turkish economy starts to seem to be collapsing, and they're trying to do whatever they can. I'm not saying, well, if you want to profit off it, go ahead. If you have your conscience about it, well, you shouldn't be in trading, or at least not in the States, because it's all about capitalism, baby. Okay, so that's the weird thing is that you get these currencies. If you look at the monthly chart, it's just this consistent, but not as volatile as the British pound against the Canadian dollar. I mean, yes, there are some dips, but it's very consistent. The only chance that this will dip is if the Turkish central bank does something about it. They've brought in a new finance minister to try to control this, and they ain't doing a very good job, unfortunately. Okay, so let me show you another crazy trade going on right now. Is the um, against the rand. Let me see here. Yeah, let me pull up the Swiss franc rand. Now, I wouldn't trade this because the spread cost is pretty severe. Um, and this is a pretty interesting trade as well. You'd never think of this. But you can see there that it's all over the place, but it's still trending up. But the moves aren't as crazy as you think they would be. This is how crazy the markets are right now. Is that for me to sit here and say that the rand and the Turkish lira are giving you pretty good returns with consistency over the long run, over the long term. That's how distorted the world has become. Okay, so I've shown you some very good pairs here. We got lots more to show you. One that can work that I've seen is if you have two countries together, like let's say China, won, Hong Kong dollar, Singapore against the Japanese yen, or in this case, what I'm going to show you, the Australian New Zealand dollar. This one can be good, but unfortunately, that's a 30-second. Let's see a 4 hour. So you can see these big upswings here back in October. So if you watch for those, you can do fairly decently there. But how often is that happening? So far, I've given you some pretty good ideas here. Okay, so let's see where things are going. I've mentioned China. So the big driver for China or any manufacturing is copper. Let's see if that will come up here. No, US dollar. So we are looking for. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna skip that because we've already covered that here in the Australian US dollar. So I'll screw that. Okay, so any questions or requests, let me know. I'm gonna show you now the difference between silver and the and gold. Okay, everyone watches their Stansberry research, their Kitco, or whatever else, and you can see here crypto or since October 23rd, silver's gone up over roughly 20%. So silver right now is kind of on a tear. Um, I think it's less suppressed than gold. But if you do a comparison between this and gold, um, you can see here gold is slight like this is for the gold bugs. You can see the 3% more, and that's in the last since July, or really this period here since October 23rd. But over the long run, gold still is a better trade long term. So if you look at the 6 month, actually they're pretty well in line. Let's see with the year to date. Yeah, you can see with the year to date that gold is quite a bit better, double your return in the long run. But this is when it gets interesting when you start to see, since as I said, October. See, everything's shifted on November 23rd. Everything moved like Australia dollar. Uh, when did it start to move? Let me show you the daily. Um, November 23rd. That's your breakdown of when Australia and the copper started to move. So the metal started to move on the exact same day, November 23rd. Go figure. So long term, silver is doing better than gold. So that would have been. Let me go back 1 month. Yeah, you can see gold is now just killing silver short term. This can obviously switch, but just wanted to let you know there's more currencies being traded in silver than in gold. So if you want better return, I'd go with the silver for now. And it's cheaper. It's called the poor man's gold for a reason. Uh, Bonds, I can't show that here too much. Um, let's see. Okay, let's talk about some of the international markets. Um, Let me just see here. Yeah, so let me show you some international markets. So I'll pull up the SPX 500 as our metric, and we'll do some comparisons here. So there's your S&P 500. So 4121, 4550. A lot of the analysts on Bloomberg was saying that that will clear by 5,000 come early next year. I agree with that as well. And I only say that because when you look at the year, you can see here that in January there was a nice bump in January, and then it declined in February. So I think we'll see a repeat with that. So we will see a continuation of a rally into the new year, and then it will continue probably up until February, and then it should turn back. I could pull up the her cycles to kind of predict any kind of cycles there, but that's just a hunch. But I wouldn't be surprised that's the case. And then beyond that, it could be a free fall. I don't know because things are looking pretty dicey in the whole U.S. fundamentals of the financial systems. To me, is just built on a house of cards with this deficit spending that's going on, and obviously with the dollar kind of declining and it's kind of stabilized, but it's starting to decline again. So the dollar is what you don't want it to be volatile. People like trend, right? So if it does go into some kind of range bound, I think that's going to spook people because this is the crust of the U.S. economy along with the Treasury as well. But as I said, I think the whole thing's built on a house of cards. I mean, just look at the U.S. government with a deficit spending of $2 trillion, or will be by the end of the year. I kind of went over that in my last webinar, so I'm not going to repeat that. But that's how I look. I do think that there's money moving towards the east as well. So that's how I feel about the U.S. markets right now. But on the other hand, if you compare some international markets like the French or the CAC 40, you can see there in the last month, maybe in the last week. Oh, no, it looks like I'm wrong. But the CAC has been on a nice little, a nice little trend. If I pull up, let's see, we want the 5 day, 1 month. If I pull up also the JP, the Nikkei 225, let's see how that's doing as well. Yeah, the Nikkei is a little better, which is good. And another one that's doing fairly well is the Netherlands 50, Netherlands 25. That's it. No, let me see here. NL funds. Anyways, I'm not going to worry about it, but Netherlands has been doing pretty good as well as a nice little tear. Those are the best international markets I've seen outside of the U.S. The FTSE, the Financial Times or UK is not that strong right now. So there's that. I think I covered everything with the yen. We've covered the South African rand. I can't really show you the treasury as is. Let me see if I can load it up. USB 05 5 year. Yeah, it doesn't have it. Also, let me see. So we've talked about the lira. We've talked about the Canadian dollar. These are the winners. Okay. So right here, we've talked about the Swiss franc. Kind of highlighted the Treasury. Yeah, and here's let me do another comparison. So we have the S&P 500 right here. Let me get rid of all these two other ones. Okay, so we're going to do a comparison. Okay, do a 1 day. So you can see there's this nice trend, and let's compare it to the Nasdaq. So as a NASDAQ 100 with the Magnificent Seven, I mean, look at the difference. That's driven by seven stocks. You know, the Apples, Nvidia, all that. As I said, right now, the good stocks are, just as examples, are Apple and Adobe. So yeah, Nasdaq's definitely the one you want to hold. More than twice the return of the S&P. There's also the Russell. Um, Let me see here. US 2000. Again, I'm using the CFDs from Oanda. And you can see here that the Russell's not as strong. And from what I understand with the Russell, once it is starting, the Russell starts to lead the overall market direction. So if you're starting to see a severe decline, you watch the Russell because they lead where the bigger stocks go, because these are the ones that are the overall health of the US stock market. Whereas, as I said, with the NASDAQ and the Magnificent Seven, they skew the markets because they're so big. But if you want the overall health, the best one to watch is the Russell 2000. So I've shown you the three big stock market indices in the U.S. So that's where that is. Any questions at all? Any comments? I can get into Bitcoin if you want. Bitcoin is not looking great. Overall, the crypto space, it's really cooled off. Let me show you some relationships here. When you look at the relationship between the DXY or the US dollar, and you see the relationship with Bitcoin, okay, you can see Bitcoin's moving on up. If I showed you a 4 hour, okay, you can see what's happening here. If you see a decline in the US dollar, generally you'll start to see Bitcoin outperform. If anything that it co-integrates the closest to, it's the US dollar. So if Bitcoin, and the swings can be a lot bigger with Bitcoin. So if the US dollar starts to decline, you can expect the overall space in crypto to move up. Part of the reason is because traditionally, I think what's going on is the big traders, with the institutions. Usually, if things go bad and they can get some really good performance, as let's say in 2022 uh, with the DXY. Um, Let me get rid of Bitcoin for a minute. You can see here, this is the lazy man's trade. Okay, everything. Let's say 2022 is one of the worst years to trade. But if you just moved everything into US dollar, you would have done very well, right? You would have made about 96 to 113. You would have made about a 15% return or close to that. And you didn't have to do anything. So when you compare that to Bitcoin, that is when Bitcoin had a bad year. Okay. See right here, 2022, Bitcoin collapsed in 2022 in March. And look what happened to the dollar. It started to move up. You know what I mean? You can't see it really, but just in around the same time, it's a little bit off. And as the dollar starts to decline, look what happens. The Bitcoin starts to move up, and look what happens here. So the dollar's starting to decline, and Bitcoin's kind of moving up again. So there is that somewhat relationship between the two, and I think the explanation is quite easy, because if institutional traders are looking for easy return, they could just park money into the US dollar, right? And if they're not going to get that, with BlackRock now bringing out ETFs and all the big institutions bringing out ETFs for Bitcoin, this is what they're going to do. They're going to park their money into Bitcoin. Thing is with Bitcoin that people don't realize is that if you look at the ESG movement, it's not talked about so much anymore. Why is that? because they have proven that ESG is not performing as well as they want you to believe. So if BlackRock's starting to buy up about 5 to 10% in all the stocks, that's their way of controlling what management does or board of directors does across corporate America. That's been proven to be subpar investing now, and people have had a major backlash towards that. So what's happening now, BlackRock all of a sudden is waking up. We'll start now manipulating Bitcoin. It's actually easier for them to do that. So they're on the verge of bringing out the ETF. On top of that, one of the other big things to note is instead of BlackRock investing into all these corporate America, what BlackRock's done is they've put money into majority of the mining companies, Bitcoin miners on the Bitcoin Mining Council. So now Bitcoin is no longer decentralized because it's the miners, the cabal of them, this council that controls how much they're going to mine with Bitcoin, how much they're going to release to the exchanges. And yes, they can influence it. And now that you have BlackRock investing in these miners, it's going to have a big impact on Bitcoin. So they have another new way of manipulating Bitcoin. And I hate to tell you that, but that's, like it or not, that's the truth. And that's one of the reasons why I think you're not seeing as much emphasis coming from BlackRock on the ESG. They're now going to do the same thing, but apply it to crypto. And I do know that they're bringing out a Ethereum ETF as well. I think that's on the books. They may bring out an XRP ETF, but that won't matter because XRP, Ripple, that pretty well is behind XRP, they may do an IPO next year. And if they do, people may not realize, but XRP may be the chosen coin for the new central bank digital coin. So that will have a huge impact for Ripple as a company. And other companies are now testing and choosing Ripple as their solution for their CBDC. So the question then becomes, what can you use that's fully decentralized and private and anonymous out there? And you look at the performance of Solana. So I don't want to say Solana is going to be your option because it's not. Even though look at the returns here, it's pretty crazy. Where 4% return, meanwhile you got over 10 time return with Solana, and people miss out on that as an opportunity. I think Solana. Let me just bring that up here. Okay, Solana is an interesting coin because it's done so well, and you can see right there. I'll pull up 3-month view. I mean, look at that difference there: 177% return versus 38% return. So if you are following Bitcoin, waiting for that breakout, well, you just missed it with Solana. Same move, going from what, $20 to well over $60. So you missed out on that. And now it's going through its challenges. Will it come back? Nobody knows. Okay, so all the big crypto coins now are manipulated or controlled or influenced, call it whatever you want. So what do? Well, let's go and get rid of that. The only option you have that's true crypto is Monero, even though a lot of people are now starting to talk about Monero. So Monero might be an interesting coin to watch. I did think it was dead, and it looks dead to me when right there. But I think this could be a coin to watch, all because of what I'm talking about in terms of the control and influence. And more people are talking about Monero as the true last decentralized anonymous coin, which was no different than Bitcoin back in the day when it launched. Thing is that Monero will be outlawed in a lot of countries because, well, that's what criminals use. Well, I don't know, but that's an interesting coin to watch. The other coin right now that I hate to say this, But Tron, this one, uh, Tron is an interesting coin as well. I only bring up Tron for one reason. So if you compare this against Bitcoin again, uh, this is the interesting thing with Tron. There we go. So Tron, let me pull up a 5-day view. So you can see what's happening now is that Bitcoin's dropping off, but Tron may start to also take off. Why do I say that? Because Bitcoin was traditionally used as the coin for supporting the terrorists in the Mideast. We know who they are, right? So that's what brought down CZ at Binance because of that, among other things, with the Russian and the new CEO of Binance said, "Well, we promise we're not going to do anything illegal." So that right there admits that over the years, Binance has been a racket for a lot of this illicit transactions and activities. So what's been happening now is Tron, enough that is now the chosen coin for the terrorists to use instead of Bitcoin. So just something I put out there because that came out today. So Tron, I don't think would be up to you what you want to do with that, but I'm just putting that out there as maybe if you're one of those that want to support it. I don't know, but that did come out today. Um, so Bitcoin is sort of outperforming right now, um, but I don't know. Just want to put that out there. I've pretty well talked about everything I can. Oh, one last one I should talk about um, is this one, Taiwan, Twix. So let's see if this can be found. Wow, you can't even find Taiwan. Interesting. Okay, let me pull up a browser here. Okay, so I'll go to Yahoo for this. So, as I said, with when it came to money, wealth, money flow, moving out, this is an interesting one. So, TWIX, that's the CFD. Huh? Even interesting. Okay, so let me go over to OEND itself. Um, OEND Twix. Hopefully, I can show you that chart on OEND Taiwan Index. Boom. Let's see what that's all about. Okay, so this one might be an interesting one to watch as well. Of course, something goes wrong. This one. So again, this is a CFD, but I'm sure there's an equivalent ETF for this. Taiwan. Ooh, I don't think Oanda don't like me. But let me see if I can find a chart for Twix. Taiwan chart. It's not a chocolate bar we're talking about here. Oh, we could try this one. Yeah, let's do this one. Okay. So Taiwan is a very, very, very interesting stock exchange. You can see it's kind of doing all right. Um, and I think this one might be a surprise next year as well because when you look at, despite the potential for China to invade, I think Taiwan's going to be one of those exchange markets that will do well because of TSMC. This is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Let's see, do a 1 day. Let me do a year to date. So you can see here TSMC's been doing pretty good run um, in the past. This is the real reason why China wants Taiwan. Okay, because you'll notice when you look at the back of an iPhone, it'll say designed in California, made in Taiwan. Or when you look at anything like Nvidia, Tesla, all the chips are manufactured out of Taiwan. It's all manufactured by TSMC. This is how critical this company is for pretty well everyone. This is one of the reasons why China wants to take out Taiwan to control and own this company by force because the West is very dependent upon this company to manufacture all their chip technology and their supply. So that's one of the reasons why you hear the U.S. military will defend defend Taiwan. I think it's next year that Taiwan is going to have an election as well. So if they go back to being pro-China, that could have an impact as well. So the Taiwanese stock market is going to be an interesting one next year. I think it'll be a surprise for a lot of people. Let me do a 5 year on this. It's very volatile, but you can see these big run ups there, and that's TSM. So when you compare that to, let's say, Nvidia, like that's one of their bigger clients, obviously. Um, Actually, I should take that back. Nvidia is just killing everybody right now. But TSMC is a company to watch, I think, over the long run because they're such a critical part of the basically the economies of the West because they manufacture a lot of the chips out there in cars, in computers, phones, the whole 9 yards. But apparently, they're onshoring some of the TSMC back into the States, but that could take 3 years, let's say. So that will be, as I said, an interesting to watch. Okay, that's it for now that I got. Yeah, I don't think I got a whole lot else to present. But I've shown you some of the winners, the gold as well. Now, if you want to, as a tip, I've shown this before. Uh, if you want to be able to know really what's doing well overall, I've introduced this before the gold silver ratio as global security, or sorry, as a metric to see how the overall economy is doing. So you can see here as an example, here's the gold silver ratio. NASDAQ goes up, gold silver ratio goes down, and it's indirect relationship here since March. If you go back 5 years, you can see that trend there. And yeah, you can kind of pretty well strongly see that there is a indirect relationship between the two. But if you really want to get a quick snapshot of the overall market, yeah, this is a very good metric. You don't have to watch anything else, what's going on with the economy, forward thinking, and that. This thing will respond to what's going on in the market, but it's more global instead of just being, let's say, US centric. And yeah, right now, everything's dependent upon how the US market plays out in the next, let's say, quarter of next year. And there may be a solid run, but I would not be surprised you'll see some form of catalyst that will just take down everything very quickly because the US market fundamentally is not strong, especially the financial system right now. That's just how I see it. I don't think they'll be able to improve their national debt situation. Actually, get nothing but worse as the overall interest. I think it's 9% interest right now to service 9% of the entire government budget to service the national debt. And within a few years, it'll be up to as high as 12 and 14%. Once you get to that level, it's unsustainable. They have that, and that eats into other programs that the U.S. government's got to fund, and they can easily try to print more money. That's fine, but it just accelerates their demise even further and faster. That's what happened in Venezuela. one of the comments today that I heard was a very valid one. When you look at Venezuela, and they continue to support a bad politician like Maduro, and Maduro was in power for many years, and look where Venezuela's at now, one of the poorest countries in the world. If the American population decides to support and continue bad politicians, I'm not going to get into who, but if you know what I mean, this problem will continue and continue long term. So this has to be reversed. Otherwise, the situation that we have now will continue, and it's not sustainable, and it'll just accelerate what's going on faster, and that demise will just come faster, and maybe, just maybe, there may be some form of expedited decline with the dollar, the economy, and everybody, and they have no choice but to raise tax where people don't have the cash. And the other thing is, the number of taxpayers right now in the U.S. is not as many. Why? People are having a hard time getting jobs and being able to maintain their lifestyle, the current uh, pay, because inflation's killing off a lot of households. And what's driving the inflation? I don't care who you hear it from, but that inflation, economics 101, inflation comes from rising debt of a country, plain and simple. And as I said, that interest to service it is going up, and it's going to get very bad. They're predicting 40, $50 trillion debt. It's crazy. I don't know how sustainable they can keep it like that. But everything right now, I'd say, is dependent upon the DXY. Uh, and right now, it's looking okay. It's stable. And that's because the markets are looking good as well. So Uh, yeah, that's the ones to watch, but nobody knows. All right. Any other questions, comments? Doesn't look like it. Going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, I guess I'm done. Thank you very much for watching. I might do another webinar on Thursday. And just so you know, I got my annual Cyber Monday deal with TradingView. It's a good deal, man. I'd get it for a full year with that third month or 13th month. So you're buying 12 months at 70% discount. On top of, you get a free month. That's a pretty good deal. I did it. You might want to do it if you're a diehard TradingView fan. Anybody got any questions at all? Blah 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 blah. No, yes, no, who, no. Going once, going twice, going three times. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening, day, or whatever, where you're from. Over and out.